Alright folks, so you guys were asked to look at these four questions, 20, 21, 22, 23. And what you should have found for 20 is that if I did 48 squared plus 64 squared, I got a sum of 6,400, which is the same thing as what 80 squared is. So that turns out to be a right triangle. Alright. This is the smallest side squared. Second smallest side squared is 8.8. When I add those two together, I get 121. When I take the longest side squared, I get 144. And 144 is bigger than 121. So that longest side is bigger than the sum, which makes it obtuse. I'm looking at those last two, 22. I'm taking 10.8 squared plus 12.1 squared, smallest squared plus second smallest squared, comparing it to 13.5 squared. If I take 13.5 squared, it turns out to be 182.25. And then when I add 10.8 squared and 12.1, I get a sum of 263.05, which is greater, which makes it acute. And this is like the work that you would show to show that you understand like what we're doing here. Smallest squared, second smallest squared, and 75 is the longest side squared. So I do get a sum of 5625, which is the same thing as 5625, which makes this a right triangle. Okay. So let's kind of take it back and just go big picture. And we're looking at triangles, so I want to look at a triangle on the coordinate plane and try to figure out what type of triangle it is. Is it isosceles? Is it scalene? Is it equilateral? Are two sides the same, no sides the same, or all three sides the same? And is it a right, acute, or obtuse? So in order to kind of start this, we're going to plot the points. So I got -3, 1, and then I got -3, -3. So I got A, and I got B, and then I got C to be 1, 0. So the first thing it's asking us to do is to find the length of every one of the sides. Now there's one side that's extremely easy to find, and that's AB. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I do know that AB is 4. Now the next two are going to be a little bit more complicated. So I got, let's look at AC. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going down 1. So I'm just using, like, making a right triangle, and then I'm just going to use the Pythagorean theorem to find that. So when I look at AC, I'm going to do 1 squared plus 4 squared. So that turns out to be 1 plus 16, which is the square root of 17. And if I look at the square root of 17, that is 4.1. Okay. All right. So the last one that we got to find is BC. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Up 1, 2, 3. 3 and 4. So let's look at BC. So I'm going to be doing 3 squared plus 4 squared. The vertical is 3 squared. The horizontal is 4 squared. I can use the distance formula as well. Either of them works. So I got 9 plus 16, which gives me the square root of 25, which is 5. All right. All right. So let's classify it by side length. By sides. Let's see. All right. Isosceles means I have two sides that are exactly the same. Do I have two side lengths that are exactly the same? No, it looks like all of them are different. So it's scalene because all sides are not the same. And that's going to take us to this last part, classifying it by angle. So remember we talked about smallest squared plus second smallest squared, and we're comparing it to the longest side squared. So in this case, the longest side is 5, so I got 5 squared. The smallest is 4, and then the 4.1, where I'm just going to keep it as the square root of 17, and I'm squaring that. So 4 squared is 16, square root of 17 squared is 17. So I got 16 plus 17 is 33 compared to 25. So that is bigger. So that means that it is a cute triangle, a cute little triangle. So it's an acute scalene triangle. here's what I'm going to ask you guys to do, is to pause the video, and I'm going to ask you guys to try this one, okay? And then just check with the answers when I'm done, or when you're done. All right, so when I look at it, I got AB to be 4. I got AC to be the square root of 20, and I did get CB to be the same thing. So in this case, because these two sides are exactly the same, that means that it's going to be an isosceles triangle. Two sides are the same in an isosceles. Now, it's acute because when I do smallest squared plus second smallest squared and compare it to the longest side squared, I get it to be 36, which is being compared to 20. So it's an acute triangle due to the Pythagorean counters. Okay? So here's what I'm going to ask you guys to do after this. All right? So complete the check for understanding. Okay? And I'm going to ask you guys, that's the next page. It's page 7. I'm going to ask you guys to rip that page off and then turn it into Mr. Graham. Okay? Hopefully you guys have plenty of time to get that done in class and also work on that next thing, homework. I'm going to ask you guys to complete assignment 3. Thanks, guys.